Hi, good evening everyone, and welcome to the this today's session of Windows to the World. Uh, today I have we have with us an eminent personality from the world of filmmaking, someone who's really an accomplished person. He went to the Indian Institute of Management, worked in a large corporate, left his cushy job went to New York to find his calling, did a program on filmmaking, returned to India and entered the world of filmmaking. He has to his credit many award-winning documentaries and films, and has been a very well-renowned person in the world of filmmaking. Today we are going to talk about the possibilities of careers in filmmaking. We'll understand different types of films and videos production, whether it is done as a hobby or as a professional endeavor. I will request Mr. Nitin Das to share his thoughts on how did this entire journey of leaving a corporate job where everything was hunky-dory, life was good, leaving such kind of environment and enter into the world of filmmaking, which is considered little bit of work of space of art, and normally people very few people try to venture into it, especially those who come from management and professional backgrounds. So Nitin, what is it that really prompted you to sort of consider filmmaking as a field of specialization and a field of work?
Right. Thanks, Vijay. So my journey started off when I was doing my MBA, and I did my MBA from IIM Lucknow, and then I was working in the corporate sector for 5 years. My last job was with India Today as a brand manager. But overall in the corporate sector, I found that it was not something that was really my calling. It was not giving me that creative satisfaction which I felt was what was my calling in life. And I always wanted to make a certain kind of a difference with the work that I was doing. And combining these two passions of doing something creative and yet making a difference, I felt that filmmaking was a beautiful choice. It was a great career option to explore the potential. And you know how the world was opening up to filmmaking. There was a time when filmmaking was considered as something which was very restrictive to people who had a lot of money, because you had to have those big cameras, you had to have big crews. But with technology changing and with digital technology coming into our lives, filmmaking was becoming more and more accessible. It was becoming easy to make, and it was becoming very easy to reach out with your work to a large number of people. So that's why I chose to start making films and start making films on social issues which can create some impact in our society.
Thanks, Nitin. Can you tell us something about the kind of films that you've made in the last few years?
Right. So I do a lot of work with young people. I do a lot of work with children. One of the films which is really popular is called Class of Rowdies. Class of Rowdies is about a school class which is very naughty and very rowdy, and they have this new teacher who comes and they totally take her to task. And then how the teacher transforms the class just by listening to them and just by allowing them to do what they really love doing. That became quite popular. I worked for 2 years in the slums of Mumbai working on a children's film which is called Jadui Pank, which talks about stories of happiness and mischief and magic, showing that no matter how difficult your life is, you can still find happiness in this. And the current project that I'm doing is a documentary. It's called The Healing Forest. It talks about how forests can heal people. You know how technology in our lives is taking over our time and our energy, and it is changing how we behave as individuals and as a society. It is affecting how our relationships happen. And a lot of people are going through stress and depression and a lot of tough times. And one of the main reasons is because people have got disconnected from nature. So this idea is really popular in Japan, and I'm trying to show how we can also incorporate this in India.
Okay, some of the movies that you made, Nitin, are centered around social issues, or they seem to have a very strong social message. Along with that, focus on young citizens of the country. So your movies tend to sort of feature more young children, students, school-going children. What could be the reasons for you to sort of choose these two areas more than
Right.
others?
See, filmmaking is a very powerful medium. It is a medium which can reach out to a large number of people, and it can affect a lot of young minds. But mainstream cinema, if you look at Bollywood, is still centered around stories of love and romance and heroes and villains, which have nothing to do with the way real life functions. And yet, we have so many interesting stories which can be told and which exist within our day-to-day lives, which are far more relevant for us as people. Therefore, I feel that films which can connect directly with young people who are the future generation, who are going to lead and shape the future of our country and also the world, if we can create something which is of interest to them, then we have a great way of inspiring a lot of young people to think differently and to create a lot of change.
Okay. Talking about films, the common understanding of filmmaking is, if you talk to anyone about filmmaking, the first thing that comes to the mind is commercial movies, perhaps animations or the television news. However, the filmmaking is much more wider and broader than just commercial movies. It also includes advertisement, films on advertisements. It also includes short documentaries. It includes music videos, which is becoming a very, very big genre or category in its own sense. And of course, documentaries and the television content, which is could be entertainment or education or information based. So, given these variety of categories, Nitin, which is ranging from commercial, and one could also include animation in some form or the other, commercial movies to television news, television content, short films, documentaries, etc. All of it seems to be sort of growing, but according to you, let's say if we have to look at 5 to 10 years from now, what would be the key categories which you see growing faster and becoming bigger than the rest?
Right. I think a lot of direction of the industry is moving towards content being created by people. Because now every phone has a camera. Every cell phone has, the smartphone has a camera which you can use as a tool to tell your story. And you have access to the internet, which can be used to share your story with a large number of people. So one big option or one big direction is obviously what Bollywood was, few years ago, where there was, in terms when there was only Doordarshan, everyone used to sit and watch Doordarshan.
Yeah.
Right? When Ramayana used to come or the Sunday Chitrahar used to come. But with smaller and smaller communities happening, groups and social media becoming popular, it is a great opportunity for common people and citizens who have a great story to tell which concerns their community. So let's say I'm sitting in Gurgaon and I have a story which is very relevant to Gurgaon, and I want to share it with all the 900 flats in my colony. Then I can simply create it and share it with them. It is so much more relevant to that community. So I see smaller centers of media happening. So you could open a local YouTube channel for your own colony or for your own city, or for your own passion. So it could be interest led or geography led, but a lot of it is going to move into the hands of the common person.
And in terms of age, earlier it used to be a profession for the big people only. But interestingly, the youngest director of who holds a Guinness Book of World Record until recently was until I think 2010 or 11 was an Indian named Kishan Shrikant. So he was just under 11 years of age, when he created a movie called Care of Footpath, and it was registered in Guinness Book of World Record as him being the youngest director. And after a few years of Kishan Shrikant, creating this record, another boy, really from Nepal, called Saugat Bista, who was just under 8 years, he directed a full-length feature film. And it was released in December of 2014. The movie is called Love You Baba. So the something which was earlier being done by the big people, adults, and people with a lot of experience. Thinking of a 7-year, 8-year-old boy or 10-year-old boy, not just making a movie like a hobby, but a professionally made feature film which is released at commercial scale. This is already a reality. So do you ascribe technology as being the main driving force, or is it something else that is helping young students or young children taking up filmmaking beyond just a hobby? Earlier it used to be that a child has just created a video, that's a great thing, but now it is becoming a little bit more serious affair.
See, filmmaking is a creative art. Sometimes you may call it a gift. Some people have a natural gift for telling a story and using this medium to tell a story. What has really worked for the common independent filmmaker is, one, there is access to information. Now, if you want to learn anything, you have it easily available. Lessons are available. There is a lot of access and resources available online where you can pick up the tips and tricks to create and shoot and act and direct. The second big thing is that the cameras and the technology for making it has become cheaper. You can get laptops and you can edit your film on laptops. You can shoot with handy cams or digital cameras or even your smartphones. And the third is being able to showcase your film to a large audience. The very fact that sitting in any town, you can have your film seen around the world by people who would be interested in consuming that kind of content is a big deal, because it puts you in the limelight. It puts you in the forefront of people who want to see your kind of content. And then you can form a community around that, whether it is music. There are so many young music stars which are coming up because of YouTube. There are people who are becoming very popular with their cooking skills. And these are just hobby-centric, but you can move from there into creating your own web series or your own films.
Absolutely. In fact, YouTube is enormous. I'm told every minute some 300 hours of content is uploaded on YouTube. Of course, much of it is specialized in niche, but I'm sure there's so much content being generated and being uploaded. There's a phenomenal scope for people to learn from various sources, and as you mentioned about this online resources and cheap hardware, which reminds me of Paranormal Activity.
Right.
So Paranormal Activity was a full-length feature film, a great blockbuster, made like millions of dollars, and it was I think just shot on Handycam type of thing, or what was it?
It was made under a very nominal budget of I think under $20,000 or something, and shot with very basic cameras. So not the high-end...
Like you and me would use, or anyone
not those,
use,
but slightly better than those, but
non-professional type.
Not the big film cameras or the big high-end digital cameras.
So in terms of the filmmaking process, I'm given to understand that it's a complex process, and it's not just stand up and shoot type of thing. So if you could educate us or enlighten us on what are the different constituents, what are the different specializations needed to make a film? What goes beyond behind the camera in terms of making a film?
Right. Generally, people now, if you look from the outside, you see people are, as an independent filmmaker, you have to do everything. But if you go deeper into what the roles, individual roles are in a big production, then it involves starting all the way from the script. So you have a script writer who creates the story, right? And then it is picked up by a director who wants to turn that story into a film. So then he recruits actors, he recruits a cinematographer who's the camera person, who specializes in handling the camera and bringing that to life. Then there is the sound person, then there is the lights department, and then you have, once you have your production team, once it is filmed and shot and you have everything on camera, you transfer it onto the computer, and then you have another team of people who take over. So you have the editors who edit everything, then there is the visual effects team who adds special effects, then there is the sound design team which makes the film believable and makes sure that the dialogue is proper and the sound is proper. Then there is somebody who creates the background score, which is adding music to it. And finally, when your film is ready, it also needs to be shared commercially. Then there is a separate team of people who focus entirely on packaging it and promoting it and doing the press release and sharing it with the larger world and making sure that it earns the revenue that some investor may have put in creating your film.
That looks like a lot of work. In fact, probably that's the reason why we have like several, maybe 100 or more people, their names written after, at the end of the movie in terms of the credits.
True.
So coming to animation, which looks like a new big thing. There are right from Up to Cars to Frozen, recent one Coco. Some of these movies have been outstanding. With little or no involvement of actors. So in the entire movie or filmmaking aspect, the actor is sort of missing, and it is all animated.
Yes.
And looks like there is a big role of technology in such kind of movies. So, do you think the competencies required in animation movies, which seem to be becoming bigger and bigger with time, that is more towards technology and less towards creative field, or do you think there is still a balance?
No, I think the principles are the same. The tools are different. For example, now even for animation, there are many tools which are available for the common person. One great example is a tool which is a free open source tool called Blender. If students who are interested in this animation and 3D design, they can just download this tool available online. Just search for Blender. It's a 3D tool, and you can start designing your own 3D models and then 3D animation work with it. So it's not that now you don't have access to the tools. You have tutorials online, you have the tools on
That's quite useful. Could you share some of the other online resources? I remember you mentioning that internet is full of, maybe just for our audience, maybe one or two more online resources or places that they can go and get the wealth of information.
So somebody who's interested in filmmaking, the basics, there is one beautiful website called video101course.com.
That's video101course.com.
And it gives you the basics of filmmaking in a very nice, simple and structured way. So you can learn the basics and start experimenting with making short films.
Right, that's quite helpful, Nitin. In terms of the skills needed, and equally importantly, how to acquire those skills. So you mentioned various roles from script writer to a director to someone who does the editing and so on. Looks like a wide range of skills needed.
Yes.
And so if you could elaborate a little bit on the skills needed and also how to acquire those skills. If one really wants to look at filmmaking, whether it is music video or commercials or whatever, as a career option, what could be some of the ways in which one can acquire those skills?
Right. Okay. See, there are many ways in which you can acquire those skill sets. Like we have all been discussing, one of the simplest way is to learn by doing. You can learn by creating your own films, starting small, It's not about winning the Oscar from your first film. It's not about having the technically the best product, but just having gone through the process of thinking of an idea in your head and then creating something and showing it to people. So through that journey of making something, you learn a lot, and when you continuously practice making these films, then you get better and better at it. You can see your own mistakes, you can learn from your own mistakes, and you develop your own style. At the same time, you cannot take away that there are many good schools, film schools out there, where if you're really interested and keen to learn more and more, learn in depth, then you can enroll yourself in some of these schools, like there is FTII, or there is the Jamia MCRC, or there is NID, the video department, and more schools are coming up, which give you a specialized education in terms of whether you want to specialize in editing, camera work, or direction, or even acting. So you can pursue education after your graduation or post-graduation, and that could be another option for you.
And in terms of, so that as I see, there are two different tracks. One is to become a professional, specializing in a particular skill, as you mentioned. And there are many production houses, whether it is television, or entertainment, commercial, or advertising, movies, etc., and even animation. In fact, India seems to be the hub of animations, and I'm given to understand significant amount of work of these big ticket Hollywood movies is really delivered in India, and a large part of Avatar and many of these animation movies.
See, there's a disclaimer to that. Most of the work that gets sent to India is not really the high-end creative work. It's more of a operation,
so it's
operational work. Like in films, let's say for example, every second is made up of 25 pictures. Okay.
So like the frame, 25 frames. Okay.
So the very fact film is an illusion. Okay. What you are seeing is photographs which are moving very fast.
Right.
And they give you the illusion of motion. Yeah. So when you move 25 pictures in 1 second, the eye sees it as an illusion, and it sees that it is a moving image. Right? So in animation, or when you are creating, so you have to create all those 25 frames. Just the fact my hand moves from here to there, in animation I would have to create 25
frames for every second.
Every second.
So it's like if it's 10 seconds and 250 frames. Yeah.
And then you'll have to color each of them, right? And then you'll have to make sure the lighting is right on each of them, right? So there is a lot of hard work required on ground, which is operational, not so much as creative.
Okay.
So a lot of the work that comes to India is operational.
More operational than
but there is a lot of creative work also being done in India.
So in terms of, let's say, job opportunities, if one has to look at these animation houses and television, big production houses, whether it is Stars or Z, Viacom, etc., or even large movie production houses. So there, job opportunities seem to be coming up quite well. However, if one has to really move towards more of creative side of, let's say, being a filmmaker oneself, like your journey, looks like it is it's not all bed of roses. One has to really face a lot of challenges to establish the name. So can you elaborate? Because in terms of the self-fulfillment, and expression of oneself in filmmaking, if one wants to make it big on one's own, looks like it's not a easy and straightforward. So what's your view on some of the challenges that one really faces if one is on one's own?
See, unlike certain industries and professions where the career graph is predictable to a certain extent, it is linear, that if you put in certain years in as a doctor or a CA, then you get somewhere, you get a certain amount of experience and you get a certain pay grade. What happens in filmmaking is that it is entirely dependent on your work, what you are able to create. So a person who has never been to film school, who's 20 years old, can create a film which can win the Tribeca Film Festival award. And yet a person who has spent 20 years in the field may create something which not many people will see or appreciate. So, biggest challenge in this is the unpredictability. That you don't know, or it is not predictable where your graph will go and pick up. Especially the initial years of your career can be quite challenging because there are very few resources available. There are very few people who will work for a new person. You don't have enough work to show. So in that space, how do you find the time, how do you find the money to and the energy to bring together a team which can work on your film and tell a story which can appeal to a larger audience? So the initial years are really tough, and then until and unless you establish yourself and establish a certain body of work which is recognized, which people know, and then they start calling you for or giving you films to make for themselves, then that period of time is a big constraint or a challenge.
Okay, so that's quite a realistic view. In terms of for students, or for our students, so students at the Indus World School, many times our students, especially the ones in, let's say, grade 5, 6, 7, and 8, they have this question to themselves that how do I know if I can be a good filmmaker, for example? Because of course, creating a video is now, as you said, it's easy to do. So, what is it that one really needs to look at if one wants to check that can I be a good filmmaker? That's the question. How do we address this question?
Right. I think you need to have a passion for telling stories. You need to have a passion for listening to stories, listening to good stories, and then sharing stories. So, just like art is a gift, some people draw well, some people sing very well. Similarly, storytelling is a gift. Some people are born storytellers, and some people are fascinated with stories. So, anyone who's fascinated with telling stories or listening to stories and sharing stories is a great candidate for becoming a filmmaker.
That's a very, very fresh perspective, Nitin. And I think it summarizes many things in one sentence, that the ability to listen to stories and the ability to tell stories with passion. I think that's a very good perspective on if one has to really look at, can I look at movie making as a career, for example? In terms of places to study, you mentioned a few of them like FTII and NID and Jamia Millia. There are certain others. I've got a list. Maybe you may want to share some of the other names which you think may be appropriate, or maybe we'll circulate it to our students. And also not just India but abroad also. I'm told you went to the US. You must have thought about it. Whether to study in India or abroad. Right. So what made you decide go to the US as compared to let's say some top institution like FTII or others?
Yeah, when I went to the US, the options in India were quite limited in terms of the course they were offering, and I wanted to focus more on the digital filmmaking side because I could foresee the field moving from a lot of the film cameras to digital filmmaking. So when I went, I was very focused on digital filmmaking, and I wanted to get an exposure in terms of what is a global scenario of independent filmmaking. To learn, because a lot of times in those days in India, we were very set in terms of that if you have to make a film, you need a big crew, you need a big budget, or you need at least access to a film camera and a lab where we would process your film and then, edit it and then showcase it and distribute it through the distribution agents. but I wanted to focus more on smaller, shorter films and films that would reach out to the people that I was interested in reaching out to.
Okay. As they say, the real essence of learning comes when one really does something. It's not about just knowing or hearing from someone.
Yeah.
In terms of our students at Indus World School,
Yeah.
If they were to, let's say, if a group of 4 or 5 students, they come together and they want to make a movie, not like a professional type movie, but a movie of, let's say, 15 minutes, half an hour. How would you advise them to go about maybe middle school or senior school students?
Right. Vijay, this is a very interesting thing. We talk about literacy.
Right.
Literacy is the ability to read, write, and use the power of language or words to communicate. Right. Now that every smartphone has a camera, but people don't know how to use it. Right. They just know how to take a selfie but they don't not literate in terms of creating a movie out of it.
Right.
There was a time when schools did not have computer labs, but they felt the need for having a computer lab because they knew that was the future. Every child needed to know computers.
Right.
So why can't schools have short film labs? How much time does it or equipment does it take to create a lab which has a camera, basic editing setup? So if a forward-looking school could get this idea of setting
Actually, there isn't anything extra required, really. What you're saying, cameras, of course, is available everywhere. We have computers and editing software like Blender and the others that you mentioned, are also available. These are all free of cost, right?
Right.
So it's not really about any additional infrastructure. I think it's just the will to do.
And and some dedicated resource who can guide the students to, in the initial phases, create a space where people can come and experiment and learn from each other and maybe create films for their own school. So that could be a very interesting idea to have a mini
introduction type.
Right.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so just like you have a computer lab or a chemistry lab or a physics lab in a school, why can't you have a film lab?
I will surely take this up, Nitin. So, in terms of animation movies, do you think any extra emphasis on mathematics or science, etc., is required, or one can pick up those skills to get into animation movies also?
So, even in animation, Vijay, what is happening is that there is a spectrum of jobs. Right? There is a spectrum of jobs. Most of the things what the consumer sees is what you see when you're watching an animation film is done by the graphic artists or the visual effects team or the animators, and then they work about rendering, modeling, texturing, lighting. But there are people who program the tool which the animators use to create those animation. Now, those tools are coded with computer language. And there are many things you can do if you have that additional skill of programming. Right? So the base or the program which creates the software like Python creates Blender, if you learn that, then you have a very large influence on what you can create. So for example, if I know the programming, then I can create a plugin which can help me generate fire. Or particles, which with particles I can create smoke. So how you create that software which can help you mimic a real life situation is also a big skill which many of the engineers or computer engineers can get into.
And that must be quite a specialization, I'm sure.
Right.
So in terms of the the new buzzwords of artificial intelligence and machine language, I was reading up somewhere that there is this so much possibility of artificial intelligence and machine learning in this entire let's call it business of filmmaking, that at some point, humans may be very less required in making of a movie. What's your take on such kind of statement?
Okay. See, in terms of the operational work, artificial intelligence so far and the computer logic so far is more in terms of information and data crunching, whereas films are about emotions, and emotions are something that you cannot replicate with a machine. To put a heart and soul into a film, you need that human element of building emotions which create life, and that so far is always in the domain of the human world. So whereas a lot of data oriented things like accounts or law can easily be taken over by the artificial intelligence, but so far it is difficult to generate into the realm of creativity, where you are creating something out of nothing. Right? You're not analyzing something and there is a lot of data which you process and you analyze it and you create something out of data. You are creating something out of nothing, which is the magic of film.
Right. So it's very inspiring, Nitin, to hear from you, especially about this concept of trying to start a movie, maybe just as an introduction to the school or introduction to the class, or some such basic. We don't have to really go in depth. In terms of let's say projects for the students, so what do you think could be ideal duration of the movie? Let's say if one is starting out with, let's say, introduction to school.
I think a great exercise could be just using still pictures. Okay. Most people think of, when they think of a film, they think of a moving picture like it is a video. Right. But even using stills, like you have a camera on your smartphone or any camera, you just take 20 shots of a day in my life, right? Okay. And through those 20 pictures, which it can be a minute long or a minute and a half, you can create an interesting film which gives other people a window into your life, right? So it's a slideshow of 20 pictures, and you can use Windows Movie Maker, which is freely available, or iMovie if you have a Mac, and then just put them together, and that's your great introductory film.
Okay, so that's quite helpful, Nitin. I think your insights on especially the different segments and your perspectives on different segments of filmmaking, and your perspectives on what to expect really, in terms of the possibility of someone wanting to get into movie making as a career of choice, whether as independent movie maker or looking at a job in a regular production house, and the plethora of job opportunities. It's really amazing to see. It's right from script writer to editor, and even the involvement of deep science and engineering in movies. So that's very encouraging, and hopefully some of our students will consider movie making as a choice of their career. And for now, we will definitely take up your suggestion on a day in my life and intro to the school or intro to the class as themes of movies, and hopefully our students will come up with maybe 15 odd minute long
1 minute or 1 minute
long movie on various topics, and we will definitely take help from video101course.com. And for any other things, if with your permission, if I may circulate your contact with our audience, if they get stuck, I'm sure you can help us.
So my page on Facebook is Filmkar. Okay. So FILMKAAR. I think that's the best way to reach me. You can just message me through FILMKAAR, Filmkar.
Filmkar. Okay.
Or my email ID is on the website, which is filmkar.com.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Nitin. Thank you for being with us this evening. And I'm sure your insights and perspectives will help not just our students, but also it will, they will motivate our mentors. And I have, we have still about a few minutes to go. And there are a few questions from the audience. If I can, take the questions. It says, one question is, are there graduate programs in animations in India?
Yeah, definitely. There are graduate programs. In fact, there are a few of these animation studios which had opened up the arena, multimedia, and in that aspect. So you could see what are the courses they are offering. But those are more, I don't know whether they offer, they're not a degree program. I'm not sure about them.
Okay. Another question is, are there national contests on filmmaking in which school students can participate?
Yes.
Whether in India or abroad?
Definitely. There are many contests, especially for young people in schools, and online is a great resource to find out which are the important ones, and even specific to certain areas like for environment or for social issue or for just filmmaking with your smartphone. There are many such contests which keep coming up off and on.
And can you share some institutes which may offer short-term courses in which we as students can enroll during summer break?
I think for
there looks like already there is growing interest in terms of wanting to know more about filmmaking.
Right. I think for a short course, it's better to go online and learn from the lessons. There are a lot of resources available online, and you can learn at your own pace, and you can experiment at your own pace. So I would rather recommend for a short course to just go online and pick up the basics from there.
Okay.
If you
any specific website that you may want to recommend for a short course?
See, Video 101 course is really good.
Okay.
But if you type on, YouTube themselves had launched basics of filmmaking lessons.
Okay.
So there itself they had a good resource on how to pick up filmmaking.
Okay.
So you could just search through that, and YouTube has an audio library which is free music, so you can use that music for your film. So they have a lot of resources which can teach you about making movies.
Okay, we have Mr. Srinivasan in the studio with us who may have a question for you, Nitin.
Well, I just wanted to say when you asked if people get inspired, so I just raised my hand.
Oh, okay. Do you want to ask a question? Any questions, sir?
No, it's as you rightly said, the crowdsourcing of content that put together. In fact, there was a huge project on YouTube wherein they had asked about 4 or 5 years ago people to just put the clippings, whatever the clippings they had, and 2 of the Oscar-winning directors together took all the content. And the content was mindless. Everybody put it. They took the content and created a storyline and created a movie.
Wow.
It was
That's awesome. That's awesome. In fact, we have another question. Now, this time it's from a school leader, not really a student. And she asks, we have annual day in our schools every year. Please give us some ideas for our next annual day in terms of how we could use the power of filmmaking.
Right. So the idea has to come from you, right? That's what will make a great film, right? What my advice to you would be to really look at, a great film. If we discuss what makes a great film, the essential of a great film is great characters, right? And you make a character great by finding out what are the great conflicts in the character's life. So if you look at any of the great characters like Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, you will notice that around them there was a lot of conflict, which is what led to them being great. So for a story to have a grip on people, what you need is great characters and great conflict. And when you have these 2 elements, what you create is great expectation. So the audience is waiting to see what is going to happen in your film. And that's what really connects with an audience in terms of being hooked into what you have created.
That's quite inspiring. I'm sure our schools will not just at for student community, but also the mentors and school leaders. We will come up with some such great expectation related
Yeah.
short films, and we'll invite you in one of these days to sort of give us more feedback once we move the needle on the ground.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Nitin, for being with us this evening. This is the first session of Window to the World, and we look forward to meeting you, the audience, soon with our next session. And thank you very much, Nitin, for coming with us.
It was a
Coming and
pleasure.
spending time with us.
Wishing all the students who are watching this a great life, and if you make stories, then make them great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.